Hey guys, um, in celebration of the fact that my channel has just reached 200 subscribers, I thought it was about time that I released a roller coaster top 5. I've been asked numerous times for my top 5 roller coasters that I've done so far, but in true Anxious Rider fashion, I thought I'd do a roller coaster top 5 with a difference. The difference being that these are the top 5 roller coasters that triggered my anxiety the worst during my journey so far in conquering the coasters across the UK. So without further ado, here are my top 5 anxiety triggering coasters. At number 5 we have the Smiler. This Gerztlauer Infinity coaster only scrapes into my top 5 actually for anxiety triggers. Obviously this sheer size and its record-breaking 14 inversions were a source of anxiety for me. However, I wouldn't say that I was as anxious about this ride as I have been about some other rides. And actually once I'd done it, the anxiety very, very quickly disappeared. It's a great ride and I love it, and I do it now every time I go to Alton Towers. But I wouldn't say it was a massive anxiety trigger, which is why it's only at number 5. At number 4, we have another Gerztlauer entry. This time it's a Gerztlauer Eurofighter in the form of Saw the Ride. This ride caused me much anxiety, mainly because of the more than vertical drop element which is included in the ride, and also the very dark horror theming around the ride, which just created the perfect environment for anxiety and panic attacks. I tackled this ride about halfway through my journey, and actually it wasn't as bad then as I thought it would be. It is riding a little bit rough in my opinion at the moment, which has made it a less pleasurable ride, but nonetheless still a good ride to do. So at number 4 we have the Saw. At number 3 we have Oblivion, this the world's first B&M dive coaster. Having watched many of the POVs and psyching myself up to do this ride, I would say it was certainly a very, very anxious time, and certainly queuing up to do it for the first time, I was very, very close to quite a severe anxiety attack. However, the ride itself proved to be a slight anticlimax, and actually not anything to be as worried about as I probably was. However, it was still a massive anxiety trigger. The idea of a vertical dive into a big hole, for me, was the stuff of nightmares. But obviously it was done, and I would say it certainly isn't one that is to be feared as much as I did fear it. But I would still say it's not one of the first coasters I would go to, and there is still an element of fear before riding it. So at number 3 we have Oblivion. At number 2 we have ironically one of my favourite coasters, which still to this day causes me some anxiety, and I would certainly say I've never ridden it without at least some nerves and pre-ride anxiety, and that is the Intamin accelerator coaster that is Stealth at Thorpe Park. The elements, particularly for me, that trigger the anxiety are the sheer force in the launch, and of course the 205-foot climb to the top of the top hat. Having an absolutely paralysing fear of heights, This was certainly a massive trigger for my anxiety. And still to this day, I look at that top hat and feel certain tremors and tinges of anxiety. And I think it will always cause that, which is probably why it's one of my favourites, because the adrenaline from it is certainly worth doing the ride. And that brings us to my number one anxiety triggering coaster. It's a ride that I've only done once and have struggled to get back on since. And that first ride experience was particularly harrowing and is probably the main reason why I've not been able to get back on it. I do intend to give it another go, and I may well change my mind about whether it does cause me the most anxiety, but certainly as it stands, of the rides I've done, this is the one that still causes me the anxiety and still makes me feel really quite uncomfortable at the thought of getting on it. So my number one anxiety triggering coaster is Rita, this Intamin launch coaster, which propels you from 0 to 60 in just over 2 seconds. I felt was quite rough, but I think the biggest problem was that I was ill prepared at the time to ride, and I braved it on spec, which is against all my better judgment. And as I came off, I literally broke down into a panic attack, having really not enjoyed the ride at all. But as I say, it is one that I intend to redo, and it may well prove that it not to be deserving of the number one spot. But for now, my number one anxiety triggering coaster is Rita.